Hello, welcome back. Today, I'm going to continue reading from my book, Sparrowmancer. I have been reading this book on this channel for 5 years. Doesn't seem possible, does it? If you haven't been following along, that's okay. I hope you can get some relaxation out of this video anyway. Today we begin chapter 11. Two weeks went by, cold and gray. It wouldn't snow. The employment office assigned Sparrow scavenging duty. He spent most of his time out of camp earning hours. They gave him a shabby scrap bag, and after 3 days, he was able to buy a better one. He worked more hours than anyone else, and he went to the camp exchange as often as he could. He got a backpack chair with a gun slip, a vinyl sleeping bag, some pants, and a sturdy jacket, boots with triple thick laces, and a hat he could pull down over his face. He put in for a Mayon rifle at the requisitions office. He told himself he was gearing up to leave. Every day was his last day. There were gone ruins on the west edge of the Blight. They were unusually rich in materials to scavenge. Sparrow could find things other scavengers couldn't, and he quickly earned the ire of his teammates. They gave him nicknames, trying to insult him. He didn't care whether they liked him or not. He stayed quiet, kept to himself. They wanted him outside their affection, so that's where he stayed. Fitting in was for humans. Every night, Sparrow would search for his hoverbike. He learned the grounds well, how to move without being seen, when the guards changed shifts, where the fences were weak. He saw the places where the hypersensitives slept, little rooms with coffin beds, no lights, no facilities. They were never in the chow hall. They ate outside the camp. 2 at a time, they went into the woods with their handlers. There, Sparrow saw them tackle deer and whispers and eat them while they were still alive. He saw Carly's sins, drugs changing hands, weapons smuggled out to somewhere, but no stolen vehicles. Jay told him the search was ongoing. At the beginning of Sparrow's 3rd week at Gold Forest, a sickness befell the camp. The crops began to die. Whole domes went black. There were rashes, fever, nausea, dehydration. Medicine didn't work. Only the hypersensitives were unaffected. Then one of Gold Forest's 3 doctors died delirious in the infirmary. Jay became desperate. For the first time, Sparrow saw him look humbled. Sparrow went to Jay in his quarters. He found him trying to straighten his long salt and pepper hair with a power cell clothes iron. He'd never seen anyone in the camp wearing ironed clothes before. This is a magic sickness, Sparrow said. I've seen it before. It's a curse. I can lift it. You know you can't do magic here, Sparrow, Jay replied. It'll drive the hypersensitives insane. Indeed, I've learned a lot about those wretches, Sparrow said. Hypersensitives look human, but they aren't, are they? Jay tried to shrug while he was leaning sideways with one side of his hair draped over an ironing board. I don't know, he said. Probably not. Where do you find them? Sparrow asked. How do they breed? They don't breed here, Jay replied. You find them in the Blight. There are whole communities of them there. Communities? Sparrow went to help Jay. Jay handed him the iron. Sparrow looked at the hypersensitive in Jay's room, Jay's personal freak. Well, they need to be out of the camp. You have to take them out for a little bit so I could do magic and break this curse. If you don't, Gold Forest is going to get a lot worse. I can't have magic here. End of story, Jay said. I trust Dr. Kell and Dr. Allo. They've gotten us through worse than this. Jay turned so that Sparrow could do the other side of his hair. The iron hissed and stank. No, they haven't, Sparrow said. They've never seen anything like this, but I have. You need to trust me. Why do you care, Sparrow? You can't get sick. What I can't do, Sparrow replied, is watch people die when I have the power to help. Sparrow remembered dropping a bandolier of grenades into a bomb shelter full of people he had killed. He'd left the transhumans to their fate. Can't was perhaps the wrong word. Jay stood up, pushed his chair back, and went to look in his mirror. He sighed, and Sparrow couldn't tell if he was frustrated with the sickness in his camp or with his tenacious curls. If I do this, you'll owe me, he said. Will I? Sparrow asked. What will I owe you? I'll think of something, Sparrow. I always do. Jay dragged his feet for another die, or rather, for another day. He finally conceded to Sparrow when Carly died. The next day, the hypersensitive's handlers leashed their charges and led them down the hill. Most of the campers wanted to go with them, but Jay wouldn't allow it. He was still worried about his boarders. The guards stayed at their posts, and the campers stayed in their beds. Once he was certain the camp was locked down, Jay allowed Sparrow to get to work. First, Sparrow got a vial of blood from the butcher. Then he cast a circle in the center of the camp. He said 5 ancient names and threw some salt he'd gotten from the camp exchange. Then he sat in the circle, his left leg over his right, and said an incantation for revelation. He repeated it, dripping blood from the vial each time. He hoped the spell would still work, even though he couldn't use his own blood. After half an hour, when all the blood was on the ground, the rite took full effect. The cursors appeared. There were spirits in the camp. Small things, red outlines of vaguely humanoid shapes, each standing at about a thumb's height. They marched the streets in single file, climbed the walls, walked through the food. Their influence was deadly, but they were innocent creatures. They didn't know what they were causing. Like Galhoth, cursors were practically oblivious to the mundane world. Sparrow followed them around Gold Forest, up and down the tower, through the motor pool, into the scrapyard. They marched for hours, and people got impatient. They came out of their homes or out of the barracks to swear at Sparrow. They threw things at him, shoes, books, and waste food from their compost bins. But without fail, they ran when they saw the cursors. Most of the campers had never seen magic. The rest had seen too much of it. Sparrow followed the cursors into the dump. The guard was Bangs. She fled when she saw the little red spirits. The cursors marched across piles of parts and power cell appliances, clothes, and sentimental objects, wasted things that were beyond repair. Sparrow grabbed a shovel. The cursors stopped on a high pile and turned around to start their march again. There, Sparrow started digging. There was almost certainly a cursed object in this pile. Some green scavenger must have brought in, or rather, must have brought it in. First-time scavs often brought back bags full of fandangles. This was why magic education was so important. Gold Forest needed deep change, and that would take a long time. Sparrow remembered Machuk saying, "You are not in this world to serve every needful thing." The employment office had recently offered him a training position, but he wasn't going to accept. Perhaps someone else would. Some mage hiding among the campers, an occult savior. If not, Jay's little world would die and be gone like the great world before. Maybe, all considered, that was what needed to happen after all. Midway into the pile, Sparrow found the cursed object. It was a smooth, shiny stone, like the ones he'd put in his saddlebags at Pitchmook. The curse burned red within it, a heart of crimson light, pumping evil into Gold Forest. Bright, but too subtle even for hypersensitives to detect. Someone had probably found this stone sitting like an offering on a tree stump or in a mannequin's hand. Curses were traps, and the best traps were enticing. "Shiny things," Sparrow said, shaking his head. A good scav had no room for trinkets. People don't curse slag. He held the stone in his fist and felt into the curse, trying to discover its creator. There was nothing left in it but malice. It was a simple, biological curse with no will of its own. That was good. Sparrow said an incantation for dispulsion. The curse grew bright for a second, and then he felt it enter him. There, it withered and died. With nothing purely biotic to infect, it starved in a matter of seconds. Sparrow sat down and meditated. He listened to the birds calling over the dump. They landed in search of food and fought over any non-compostable scraps they found. The curse hadn't affected them. It had been anthropocentric. Sparrow thought of Machuk, Rema, and Toa. He wondered if Leech had gotten home safely, if Jory had survived the next clip raid. When he felt focused, he stood and shook himself. The curse was as gone as the old world, but there was still work to be done. The curse caster could be a spirit or a mage. They would be in the area. He would have to talk to Jay about finding them. His work done, Sparrow could go home, but this was his opportunity. He searched the dump for hoverbike parts, digging to the bottom of each pile. There was nothing, not a rivet, an actuator, a control chip. This was Sparrow's last hope before Jay, who was clearly sandbagging. He didn't want to let Sparrow go. Why give him the means to leave when he was the best scav in camp and the only thinking machine anywhere? Jay clearly hadn't considered that Sparrow might get fed up at Gold Forest. Probably he wasn't accustomed to treating with people who had any will. Many wasteland wanderers were worn down and ready to fall in line. Sparrow saw defeated people everywhere he went, but he had hope, and Jay hated that. Now, the curse of the shiny rock was lifted. Without a doubt, the sick were climbing out of their beds, hugging their loved ones, amazed at how much better they felt. That had to mean something to Jay. If it didn't, then Sparrow was beyond ready to hop the fence and set out for the Blight on foot. Gold Forest was overdue to eat his dust. The hypersensitives returned with no trouble. They went back to their windowless chambers, their coffin beds, or their posts outside every door in the camp. There was a memorial service for Carly. To Sparrow's surprise, Jay wept, giving Carly's eulogy. He called Sparrow a hero, but no one treated him like one when the service was over. The days went on as they had, and no one but Jay seemed grateful. Sparrow met with Jay in the tower on a cold morning. Flurries were blowing in from the north. Snow again, at last. Jay thanked Sparrow again, and then he stood staring out the window in the direction of the Blight. As sunlight hit the window, Sparrow caught a glimpse of his own reflection. The collar of his ribbed turtleneck was hanging in a bunch. His cargo pants flared out from his narrow waist, where he'd practically tied them on with a Kobicha ratchet belt. His eyes were blue LEDs. "I said you'd owe me, Sparrow," Jay said. "And here we are. You did what you said you'd do. Are you willing to do more?" "If it will help, yes," Sparrow replied. "We need to find the curse caster first. Whoever that is might be targeting our scavs." "We're on the same wavelength," Jay said. "That's exactly what I was going to say. I know just where to look." Jay pointed to the edge of the forest. Rocks cut into the trees, black and brittle. Obsidian scree sloping down from soaring crags. A pass went between the cliffs, the one Jay claimed to have come over when he left the east. "There's a witch in the Blight," he continued. "She changes the dead, makes horrible things. Sometimes she sends them back against us. Snags, dead dryads that have been mutilated back to life. It's been a while since we've seen them. I thought maybe she'd left or died, but she's back." I know she did the curse. A flesh mage, Sparrow said. Have you ever seen her? Jay shook his head. He ran his hand through his flattened hair. He seemed genuinely perturbed. Sparrow was surprised at the look in his eyes. His database identified it as concern. Was it real care for others? Probably just concern for his enterprise, his legacy. I want that witch dead, Jay said. That's what you owe me for allowing magic in my camp. You do that, and I'll get you your bike. You know where it is? Sparrow stepped close. I found it yesterday. The thief died of the sickness. Who was it? Talus, Jay said. He was a cleaner and apparently a parts smuggler. Sparrow had never heard of any Talus, but challenging Jay wouldn't help him. He had to pick his battles. Is my bike intact? Sparrow asked. Sparrow, or rather Jay, put his thumb beneath his bottom lip. Was he blatantly considering a lie? Sparrow's scan only said thoughtful. Yes, Jay said. Kill the witch, get your bike, and you can finally move on out of here. Will you do it? Of course, Sparrow said. Of course, Jay repeated. Turn in your last hours at the CX. Get whatever you need at my discount. Sparrow looked toward the blight. He wondered what trap was out there. Was it something Jay had prepared? Whatever it was, he decided he would handle it. He knew he could be immovable when he needed to be. We're not the perfect pair, Sparrow said. There's not a lot of trust here. But you've done something important with Gold Forest. Something risky. Even if it fails, you've shown that some measure of rebuilding is possible. So, I don't necessarily admire you. I at least admire that. Jay stared, nodded like a toy, and pursed his lips. Then he said, See you when you get back. Sparrow climbed down from the tower. He went to the camp exchange and got fuel cells, ammo cells, canteens. He picked up a new boot knife from the requisitions office. At home, he stuffed his backpack with supplies, tight rolls of clothes and foil-wrapped pemmican, and he tied his vinyl sleeping bag to the top. He stowed his Mayon rifle in his gun slip and tied his divining charm around his waist. Then he set off into a loveless cold. That is the end of chapter 11. If you have been following Sparrowmancer for the past 5 years, I thank you. We are almost finished. And then there are 2 more Sparrowmancer books. Until next time, I wish you peace and loving kindness.